Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak is speaking at a session in the AI Impact Summit. Let's cut across.
From 2018 through 2024, really, which is a good 6-year period, we were in the era of pre-training. So we were writing one very large exponential curve towards improving the performance of the models. And that curve was very predictable, and it sort of had clear characteristics where the more resources you put in, the more results you would get out. And there was a lot of questions at the time of whether or not this curve would continue, and even to the degree it did continue, were there diminishing marginal returns. And I think this was sort of one of the more recent sort of eras of AI skepticism. And then in 2024, like towards the end of 2024, began the era of reinforcement learning. So this was sort of the next major wave that stacked on top of the previous wave. And this is when we saw the models begin to learn to reason. And there's always this meme of, what did Ilya see? Well, Ilya saw reasoning from the models. And it was very clearly this next mega wave of the technology. And even reinforcement learning had clearly some limitations, and there were all these questions around when that was going to, how long that era was going to last, and maybe there were limitations in that era. And then at the end of 2025, so just a few months ago, I think we've really begun an entirely new paradigm or era of the technology, which is really beginning the era of recursive self-improvement. And I think we're really starting to see this in the development of our models. I think most of the major labs are seeing this in the development of their models, which is that the models themselves have now become instrumental in accelerating the process of producing the next AIs. And so the sort of, from the outside, what you see is maybe an acceleration of overall development velocity, an acceleration at which the speed at which the new models are being released. Internally, what we see is just dramatic speed ups. I think the sort of the productivity of an individual researcher has grown dramatically, and we don't expect that to stop. In fact, we expect it to kind of smoothly continue accelerating, where the output of an individual researcher and individual engineer, well, I think that itself will continue growing exponentially as the technology improves. And the other mega wave that is somewhat coincident with this new paradigm within the sort of development of the technology of recursive self-improvement is really the arrival of agents in earnest. And this is something that has been talked about since, I honestly want to say 2023, with a lot of fanfare. And for a long time, it was sort of one of these hype buzzwords that never actually lived up to the expectations. And I think also at the end of 2025, toward middle to end of 2025, we started to see agents actually work. And this is, these are where the models can actually start taking actions and start automating entire workflows and being sort of dramatically more productive as actual sort of entities unto themselves versus assisters. And this era is, it started with coding agents. We're starting to see it really percolate through personal agents. This is a big part of what we believe in at Meta. And I think over the course of 2026, we will see large-scale agent deployments in many areas of the economy, many areas of the world, and the sort of, the GDP of AI, so to speak, is going to grow exponentially.
Well, that is very welcome to hear. I think you hit on something that is important, because I remember when I first started doing this in the job, the conversations were all around these scaling laws and would they continue? And you mentioned the skepticism. I mean, not only have they continued and continue to deliver this exponential growth, it feels very much like the last few months have seen an acceleration. And it's what you touched on. It's what Dario and Demis have also said to me and publicly, driven by this recursive self-improvement, that the models themselves are now able to help us develop the new models quicker. So, we're at this quite exciting, but also a moment of some anxiety because of that accelerating development timescale. So I wanted to just then talk about trust, because I tell you, give you a story. I have two young girls, and as they're using their chatbots and things, and they're always like, please, so and so and so and so, and thank you when they finish writing their request or they get the answer back. There's lots of pleases and thank yous everywhere. And I thought that was interesting. But I said to them, look, there's, you don't need to do that. There's not a person. It doesn't matter. And by the way, it costs a fortune when we have to do the compute for that. And they said to me, you know what, Daddy? They said, if AI takes over the world, we want to have been kind to the AI. And I thought that was good insurance policy. But it kind of, it touches on this anxiety.
They're very wise.
Yeah, in that maybe. Across the world, we're seeing these different attitudes towards AI. In countries like India, where we are, there's enormous optimism and trust. And then actually in Western countries, we're seeing that anxiety is still the kind of dominant feeling towards AI. Now, I think closing that confidence gap is as much a policy task as it is a technical one. But I'd love to just get your thoughts. I mean, obviously you are at a B2C company dealing with billions of consumers every day. How do you think about this trust question? How do we get trust up in places where it is not, for something that you believe, I believe, and everyone in this room probably believes can do untold good?
Yeah, this is one of the most important questions, and actually, perhaps even more so than the technology and the development of the technology, maybe will govern how successfully the technology diffuses, more so than anything. And we think deeply about this because our vision for the technology is that it is we can deploy personal agents that know you better than most people know about your health, know about your goals, know about your relationships, know about your family and your friends, and can really help you live your life more effectively, can help you be healthier, can help you accomplish projects that you never would have had time for, can help you build the business you always wanted, can help you explore your interests. And to properly build that requires an immense amount of trust from consumers, from governments, from effectively everyone, from all organizations. And so, this is one of these interesting moments where I think because the form that of the technology that we want it to take is so intimate and is so deeply tied with what we think is really the future of the consumer life, and the consumer is at the core of their relationship with technology. The figuring out ways to develop the technology in partnership with governing bodies and in partnership with nonprofits and other organizations to garner that trust is very important. This is something we've seen at Meta actually with WhatsApp. We were talking about this actually backstage, but WhatsApp has become incredibly ubiquitous and a real, I think, utility for much of the world, in large part due to its commitment to privacy and the sort of trust that we've built around WhatsApp as an organization. Oftentimes at the sort of, not necessarily for the optimization of our business objectives, but for the optimization of trust in WhatsApp as a platform. I think a similar journey will be necessary for the AI products of the modern age, and we've seen, we've already seen various kerfuffles or sort of jabs back and forth between the existing AI, products and labs around, whether their actions are truly garnering, truly building these levels of trust. But and then I think the topic that you really kicked off at Bletchley around, in a sort of like global way around safety, I think is more important than ever. I think we're already seeing that the models are achieving levels of capability which cause some pause around some of the sort of like risks that we monitor for these models as it comes to various national security risks or various cyber security risks. And so the importance of properly testing and then building the right systems to monitor and deploy these models safely is of paramount importance.
And you and I have been talking about this same topic for some years, and that was key to us at Bletchley was establishing the AI Security Institute in the UK to do exactly that work. And the thought was there was a gap where the technical capability didn't exist amongst governments to evaluate some of these risks. So how could we, in the UK, hopefully take a lead, but in a sense provide a global public good, where we work in partnership with companies like yours and the other frontier labs to do pre-deployment testing on these models. And my thought was always that by doing that, and that's not regulation, but it gives citizens confidence that the technology is safe, because ultimately people don't adopt a technology that they don't trust. And my sense hearing you is that there's a role for the companies. I thought the privacy example with WhatsApp is a good one, is how do they design AI products that will engender trust. And then there's a role, it sounds like you agree, for governments to do some of that technical evaluation. And is your sense that we need more cooperation between governments on that, more interaction with the labs? Is that working as well as it should at the moment?
I think the interaction is working well, but I think this is one area where, we always can be more thoughtful, and especially as we enter this phase of dramatically increased AI progress, I think we constantly need to be thinking about how we can do better.
I think one of the other areas where this debate on trust will be won or lost is in the public sector. And I think as citizens, if you experience better healthcare, more efficient government services, a state that is quicker at dealing with you, I think this debate goes from abstract to real, and you have a real way to demonstrate benefit. Do you have a sense from where you sit about where the most obvious use cases or deployment cases are in the public sector for AI that we should be excited about and that governments should be thinking about?
I do. I think that one of the first, if you think of governments as service providers, in a sense, to their citizens, I think there's a huge opportunity for all governments to be able to deliver their services more effectively. We're already seeing that actually in India, on top of WhatsApp, funnily enough, where there are, in certain states, they actually deliver vast majority of the government services directly through WhatsApp. And then for transit, nationwide, actually able to do that through WhatsApp in India. I think last year, 100 million sub. What? That's not AI.
Use it to get more efficiency and more growth, and they are driving
The highest level of failure of the organization actually entirely rests on its ability to properly embrace AI. And so that's sort of the tops-down component of it. And there's sort of a strategy that must be designed more thoughtfully. And actually, honestly, you can probably ask AI to help you design that strategy now, and it'll probably do a pretty good job. And then you need a bed of bottoms-up adoption and bottoms-up success stories. And for us at Meta, like the example of this are, we have these engineers throughout the company who are able to use AI to be 10 to 100 times more productive. And those are just such incredible examples that where all of a sudden everyone else in the organization looks around and realizes, wow, this is really something that must be taken very seriously. It's not just something that the CEO or the C-level individuals are talking about and, that they're so detached from reality. It's like, no, it's very real on the ground in a very big way. And so I think you need this sort of mix of what are the success stories that cause everyone to realize how big of a shift it actually is, and then also ensure that there's a continual, there's a very clear top-down direction that this transition is mandatory.
It's mandatory. Very helpful advice. Look, we're almost out of time, so maybe last final point to close on is, you're looking ahead. What are you most excited about in the development of this technology? You've touched on personal agents, other scientific breakthroughs. Where is this going, and what should governments be doing now, so that they are prepared and not playing catch up?
I think the things that you can depend on, I think the pace of technology development will continue accelerating. I think this era of recursive self-improvement will feel like everything is speeding up, and I think that the technology will continue developing very quickly. I also think that the diffusion of the technology is going to accelerate. I think there's been this question for the past many years, which is everyone's talking about AI, but where is AI in my daily life? I think that that really is going to accelerate. Maybe not, it's not going to be 100 times faster, but maybe it'll be 2 or 3 times faster every year for the next many years. And I think the thing that where I really am excited about this going is, we talk about this idea of personal superintelligence within Meta, which is, how does each person have an agent that helps them accomplish the things that they're, extremely excited about? How can they help them, explore their passions, build a business, make a discovery, invent a thing, achieve the most maximal version of their own lives? And I think where this is going even beyond then is sort of this concept of interpersonal superintelligence, which is, I think we already see in human society, sometimes the thing that is necessary for big things to happen are just for the right set of people to be organized in the right way. You see this with companies, you see this with nonprofits, you see this with large movements, you see this even with governments when they reorganize. And I think there's an incredible opportunity for the technology of AI to enable humans to organize in ways that are even better than we do today. And all of a sudden, maybe we'll be able to organize as communities or as groups or as new companies, or who knows what it'll look like to solve many of our greatest challenges. And so, it sounds a bit highfalutin, but it's something I'm genuinely quite excited about.
No, we can see that, and it's a very compelling vision. Look, there's been fascinating conversation. It's clear that the technology is not just keeping pace, that it's accelerating. It's clear that the debate is moving from just talking about the technology to, as you said, how is it making a difference in people's lives and being deployed. And look, one of my concerns, and maybe we'll finish on this, is that I think some political leaders think that AI is going to be tomorrow's issue, when I think they need to recognize that it's an action this day issue. And this needs to go from, AI needs to go from being a kind of specialized topic to a centralized responsibility of government. And it needs to have that same urgency and action attached to it, so we can realize all the benefits that Alex has